The tofu are like rafts of salvation that are taking me to like a hot spring where there's nature around me, and the green beans are the nature, and the tofu is like rising above and just like fulfilling its like highest self in this like cauldron of goodness. Yeah. That's what I free associate on this dish. Hey guys, it's Carla. I am here again in my kitchen for another episode of That Sounds So Good. And today I'm going to be making spicy, tangy green beans and tofu. This is from the Monday through Thursday section of the book, and it's in the Burning Clean chapter. What I love about this dish is it is a vegetarian entree that can easily be doubled if you're feeding more people. I'm gonna show you my technique for making tofu really crispy. It's very few ingredients and it's a stir fry, so it comes together very quickly. Even if you are not accustomed to eating vegetarian on a regular basis, it's got the richness and spice. It's very belly warming, and I think that it is totally satisfying. All right, so I'm starting with a 14-ounce block of firm tofu. You want firm or extra firm, so that it doesn't fall apart on you when it's in the saute pan. I'm going to cut this into 6 planks. So an easy way to do that is to cut it in half first and then each half into thirds. After I cut this into planks, I'm actually going to press it. Taking 15 minutes to press out the tofu is going to bring down the water content, and that's gonna help a lot with crisping. If you happen to have a bunch of cornstarch in the house, you can skip this step, cut the tofu into pieces, and then toss it in a generous amount of cornstarch to coat. And once the tofu has a clean kitchen towel underneath, I fold the towel over the top, and I'm just gonna put a plate, or if you have another rimmed baking sheet of the same size on top, and then add a weight. This is my beloved Pressy Downy, and if you haven't watched this video, you can. But if you don't have a weight like this, you can use a Dutch oven, a little cast iron skillet, a few cans of tomatoes, whatever you have that is heavy, just to make sure that things keep pressing. So that's gonna sit for 15 minutes. While the tofu is being pressed, the rice is gonna get started. This is a perfect pot of rice from chapter 11. It is the way that I grew up cooking rice because I didn't have a rice cooker. Dare to dream someday, but for now we do stovetop rice. So I'm just gonna put this on the back and get it started. All right, I'm gonna start with the green beans. These were especially thin, closer to like a haricot vert than like a green bean, which is great. It just means they're going to cook that much faster. I've already stemmed the stem end, and I'm leaving that little tail intact. There's like no reason to kill yourself trimming that part off. It's totally edible and tender. So I just wanna cut these in half. I definitely like the way they look when they're whole, but I find eating them, if you're using chopsticks or you just have a fork and no knife on the table, that having a really long green bean is just a little harder to eat. Instead of green beans, you could do the exact same method with asparagus. You could use broccolini, you could use broccoli spears, you could use any kind of snap bean actually would work. Sugar snap, snow peas, like flat beans that come around in the fall, like Romano beans. Those are all in the same family. You could totally mix and match, actually. Different green veg. Clean out the crisper. Okay, those are done. I'm gonna set them aside over where I'm gonna be cooking. This is like a 5 or 6 ounce bunch of scallions, and I'm gonna use the white and the green, and I'm gonna put them in all at the same time so I don't have to keep them separate. I'm aiming for about 1/4 inch and just into rounds. If you wanted to get fancy, you could go on a bias. So every recipe in That Sounds So Good is written in chronological order, meaning I am going to tell you when to do things in the order I think you need to do them for the recipe. So instead of calling for all of this stuff pre-chopped in the ingredient list, this is something that you do after you've got your tofu pressing and your rice cooking, because that's the inactive time that gives you this like little gift of a bubble of free time in which to do your veg prep. It would make no sense to prep all the veg and then press the tofu and then stand around for 15 minutes, unless you're into that kind of thing. But like on a weeknight, not so much. Are these gonna overflow? Let's find out. Ooh, fill it to the brim. If you didn't have scallions, you could use shallots, you could use like one medium red onion, I think would work. I think a yellow onion would work. I think a leek would work. So any kind of allium that you want to use instead of your scallions is a great decision and a great choice. Oh my God. Wow. I'm committed to this bowl. I'm just telling you right now. Like pants, you know? Sometimes you know that it's not the right choice, but when you've committed, and you just got to get in to that pair of pants. So this is the pants. All right, I also need about 1 ounce of ginger. So in the book, I think I said, 1.5 inch piece. Sure, that seems right. And I'm gonna peel it before I grate it. I'm using a spoon, which is a great way to peel ginger because with the tip of the spoon, you can kind of get around all the little nooks and crannies. If you use a vegetable peeler, it'll work, but it's just hard to get like in between all these like weird little digits. Ginger is a rhizome, like turmeric. Love a rhizome. If you have a microplane, that is a great way to peel ginger, kind of make short work of all the fibers. I have this little ginger grater. It's a ceramic with these really sharp little points. And it also like takes down the ginger really fast. All right, so now I have all my veg prep done. I'm gonna put these over here. Okay, so the ingredients that make up the sauce I chose because they are going to deliver spiciness, sourness, saltiness, tanginess, and a little bit of sweetness. The first one is gochujang, which I need about 2 tablespoons of in my undying commitment to scaling into smaller and smaller containers as I move through a tub of gochujang. This is what I have left, and it looks like it's about 2 tablespoons. If you don't have gochujang, a substitution would be a combination of miso paste and sriracha. It's not exactly the same, but it's gonna give you the heat from the sriracha, and the miso will give you that like depth and a little bit of kind of fermented saltiness that you will find in this fermented chili paste. Now I have soy sauce. This is 2 tablespoons. So this is a Korean ingredient. This is a Japanese soy sauce. I also have Chinese black vinegar and mirin also. So they're not from the same cuisines at all, but they're going to together make a delicious sauce. 1 tablespoon of black vinegar. If you don't have black vinegar, you could use cider vinegar. I've seen a lot of books say to use balsamic in its place. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And my palate, maybe malt vinegar, I think would be a better substitution. And the mirin is a 1/4 cup. If you didn't have mirin, you could use sake, would be like giving you a little bit of a sweetness, but also a light, kind of more watery body that would mimic this really well. Time to fry. I'm gonna get my skillet and get it preheating. If you have a wok, obviously this is a terrific time to use it. If not, I think cast iron or a carbon steel pan is really great because they will get very hot and they will conduct heat very well. That being said, I've got a cast iron here, and once it's hot, it's gonna do a great job of conducting heat, but because this material is so dense and thick, you do need to preheat your skillet before you start cooking to make sure that it's hot through all of the layers of its iron self. So while this is heating up, I'm going to double check the rice. The timer went off. Ooh, it looks really beautiful. And just give this a little toss and the little fluff. So I would rather have the rice nice and hot waiting for me than my stir fry nice and hot waiting for the rice, because then everything gets cold. Okay, so next, let's tear the tofu. That's the big reveal. It doesn't really look any different, but the towel has absorbed a lot of liquid and is quite damp. And instead of cutting the tofu, which you could do, I prefer to tear it and kind of break it into pieces. That way you get these kind of ragged, non-uniform edges, and it just is another opportunity for like crispy bits and like craggy surface. It's the same kind of thinking with a torn crouton versus a perfectly cut crouton. You just get more surface area for more browning to do more interesting things with the texture. Not really being too precise about it. I'm gonna tear those into pieces. If tofu is not your thing, that's great. You can use scallops. You could use large shrimp. You could use boneless, skinless chicken thighs that you've cut into pieces. You could use beef for stir frying, like a thinly sliced beef chuck steak. All of those things are gonna cook at about the same rate. They all have an ability to get brown and delicious, and they're all gonna be really great with all the other flavors in the dish. When you're browning the tofu, you need to give it a chance to get dark. So if I kept stirring this and tossing it and moving it all around, that would never happen. So leave it alone until the underside is really dark brown. That takes like 3 or 4 minutes, and just keep an eye on it. Okay, I can tell that good things are happening and it's time to turn the tofu over, because when I look at the edge of the tofu where it's hitting the pan, there's browning, there's crisping, there's little craggly bits. So this is a good time to flip. Each piece of tofu has like, what, 6 sides? I'm not good at geometry. You're not gonna get all 6 of them to be brown and fabulous. At least 2 to 3. So I'm just gonna scoop. Did you see how nothing stuck? Did everybody see that? No sticking, sliding in a brown, delicious way. If like toast went ice skating, that's what this would be. That's what I meant. That's what I meant. Turn over. Seasoning with salt. All of the soy sauce, the gochujang are both salty, so you don't need to go crazy at this point, but season the tofu lightly with salt. And now I'm letting the other side get in on the action. All right, I'm very pleased by my brown and crispy tofu. That was, I hope, looked as easy as it felt for me. And I'm gonna take the tofu out while I do the other ingredients. Taking the tofu out before I get into the veggies and the sauce means it's gonna stay in this like crispy quality as opposed to getting like re-steamed up with everything else. And the tofu will go back in the pan at the end. If you chose an alt protein, you would do the exact same thing. Just take it out of the pan. Pan's looking a little dry. I'm gonna add a little more oil and go in with those halved green beans. These are very thin and tender beans, so that's really, I would imagine, gonna take about 2 or 3 minutes. We want it hot all the way through, a little bit blistered, a little bit browned, and crisp tender with like some juiciness. I'm gonna season the beans lightly with salt as well. A little more oil. And I'm adding the scallions and also the grated ginger. As soon as those go in there, it smells so good. That's the title of my next book. That smells so good. It's just gonna be a book of onion and garlic sizzling in a pan. The beans look exactly the way I want them to look. They have nice dark brown spots. They've got that kind of shriveled skin that I was looking for. They're tender, but they have bite and they have juiciness. So now it's time to add the sauce. Once the sauce mixture goes in, it's gonna be about 30 seconds. So it's immediately at a boil. Totally getting thicker. As I stir, it's coating the beans. Actually, I'm gonna turn the heat off at this point and get the tofu back in. Here we go. This is it. Weeknight, vegetarian. In the Burning Clean chapter, it's all about kind of eating well, whatever that means for you. And a lot of times when I want to burn clean, I don't know why I do this every time I say burning clean. I don't know, burn clean. For me, that's just kind of like maybe not as rich, maybe not as heavy, maybe there isn't like an animal protein, but I never don't want something like super delicious, really savory, filling, satisfying. And in this dish, I'm getting that in spades. So that's in texture, that's in aroma, that's in just like the generosity of being able to take seconds. Not because I deny myself seconds, just because there's like a lot and I get to have seconds. That's the worst when people are like, is there enough for, oh, never mind. All right, so I have my perfect pot of rice and my spicy tangy situation. I don't think this needs anything. If you wanted to squeeze some lime over it, you totally could. You could do a few dashes more of black vinegar. Tofu is a sponge in so many ways. Like, it's porous and it absorbs all of the flavors of whatever you give it, but it also like soaked up so much of that sauce and still has this really crunchy outside. So you get through that crunchy brittle, and then the center is like really pillowy soft and saturated with all of the flavors of the mirin mixture. My green beans have a lot of color, but they also have a lot of bite. And the rice is like just absolutely perfect, like sticking together just enough. And it's really, really good. And it's quite hot, like already getting a little bit of the high cheekbone sweat, which is where I sweat from spicy food. Also, can we talk about just 2 pans? We didn't even talk about that. 2 pans, 1 block of tofu, a pound of green beans, and that's it. That's like literally it.